Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Londa Dewey with the QTI group, and we are so delighted that you have taken time out of your busy schedules to join us. We're very excited to share with you the 2023 HR Trends webinar this morning. So, Jill, if you could turn to the next page on the slides, you can see our agenda. And we're going to be sharing some current events so we can ground ourselves all in what's going on today. What are we all facing? And then this summer, QTI staged a survey for the 12th year in a row, which we asked several organizations in Wisconsin about what is happening in their business related to HR trends. We're going to share the results of that, the top 3 challenges that have come with those results, and then we're going to share some strategies to help you to turn some of those challenges into opportunities. We will spend the second half of our time in a panel discussion. We're so excited that Jan Kiddo from American Family, Tim Hake from Hayes Performance System, Tara Conger from Tandem HR, and Dave Packard from Nordgear are joining us. And we've got some great questions for our panelists. During this time, if you have a question, please put your question in the Q&A function on the webinar. We will be monitoring that, and we will spend the last couple of minutes during our time together answering your questions. If we don't get to all the questions, we will send a follow-up email to everybody that's participated. Also, we will be sharing our slides, the recording, and the ebook. So let's go ahead and get started. Well, we need to ground ourselves in what's happening in the current events right now. And we certainly are living in unprecedented times. And we're looking for that new normal. But what is that new normal? I think it's still loading. The dust is still settling, and we're at different places in finding that new normal. And it's because of these headwinds. And there are so many different headwinds. It's not just one thing, it's many things. It's the uncertainty happening with the ongoing pandemic. It's participation rates in the workforce at 62.3%. It's that great resignation, or is it quiet quitting where people are working but not really working that much? Or I've even heard about the great reshuffling where people just are dissatisfied right now and thinking a new job is going to take care of it. But turnover has increased. And then there's low unemployment and low immigration and accelerated retirement that took place during the pandemic. Although some retirees are starting to look to re-enter the workforce, maybe on a part-time basis. There's political polarization, supply chain issues, 40-year high in inflation, business slowdown. Again, it's just not one thing, but it's really many things. And then we've got 4 generations working side by side in the workplace. And expectations do differ by generation. And I think it's important that we all understand the needs of all to ensure that everyone feels supported, respected, and heard. And before the pandemic, before COVID, only 3.6% of the US workforce worked remotely half-time or more. Today, 85% of organizations offer at least some form of remote work. So as we think about these external forces, what else do we need to learn, and what can we focus on to be successful? So for the rest of my time, I'm going to be sharing with you the results of the surveys, both the organization survey and employee survey. We're going to go through the challenges and then some strategies for you to consider. So let's look at the HR Trends survey, the participant profile. We staged a survey in the middle of the summer this year, and 225 primarily Wisconsin-based organizations responded. And you can see in this chart, it's across industries, across ownership type, and across organization size. Also, in 2022, for the first time, we decided to do a survey of workers. We surveyed candidates that QTI had placed or had been active in jobs in the last several years. And 573 people responded. We staged a survey about the same time as the organization survey, and we just asked 4 questions. As I go through these results, I'm going to share a little bit about the organization survey and a little bit about the employee survey. So what are those top 3 challenges for 2023? Well, not surprising, attracting the right talent is number 1. Number 2 is meeting higher total rewards demands. and 3 is retaining key talent. They certainly all are locking together. What I think is always interesting is looking back to last year. And last year, the second challenge was building a sustainable workforce through succession planning. That one dropped down to number 5 this year, but then the other 2 were still tops of the list. So let's drill into each challenge. Number 1, attracting the right talent. We'll talk about the employee experience, flexibility and autonomy, and expanding recruiting solutions. In our survey, 88% of you said attracting the right talent is the greatest challenge, and 83% said recruitment or retention is a top priority. So employers really need to stand out from the crowd. And one way to do that is through an employee value proposition. It really aligns an organization's goals, values, and benefit offerings with those of prospective employees. So it's really a written statement, and it helps you to really identify who you are genuinely and what kind of employees really fit with who you are. It's about pay, it's about benefits, but it's also about belonging and career progression and technology and remote work and flexibility and that community connection, both the external community as well as the internal community. What's interesting in our survey is 28% of the survey participants reported having an employee value proposition. So I see this as an opportunity. You all see it's important, but it's just really documenting what that is, and it can really help to attract talent. Diversity, equity, inclusion. More than 3 out of 5 organizations have made DEI a strategic priority. However, less than 20% have a DEI strategic plan in place. And 62% of workers consider a DEI strategy and environment of inclusion as an important factor in a company's success and an important factor on where they want to stay and where they want to go to work. When we asked in our survey about what top actions organizations are taking to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, we found that 57% said training, workshops, and development opportunities. The second most response was providing a safe place and a way for employees to share feedback. And the third was reevaluating job requirements to ensure that degrees, years of experience are really requirements and taking requirements out that aren't really real. And what's interesting about that number 3 response is that was actually the number 8 action in a previous survey. In our survey, 70% of organizations reported the ability to recruit qualified, diverse candidates as their biggest obstacle to a more diverse workforce. And then if we look at our employees survey, we asked employees, what do you really want in a job? And the top 2 answers were number 1, competitive pay. That's really not surprising, but 82% said that competitive pay was their top priority and one of the top 3 reasons for leaving a job. But flexibility was second. It was the second most sought after benefit. And a factoid at the bottom by LinkedIn said there's an 83% increase in job posts that mentioned flexibility since 2019. Flexibility is here to stay. And when it comes to flexibility, are employers and employees speaking the same language? What is flexibility versus autonomy? To an employer, flexibility might be how many days do you need to work in the office? But to an employee, it means I have autonomy in days and hours work and where I work. So it's important to really think about where your organization is on that spectrum, and then really where your employees are and what they're looking for and make that match. In our survey, 85% of responding organizations said that they have and will continue to offer remote work arrangements. That's an increase of 3% over last year. And as you can see at the top of this slide, the top ways in which organizations are offering flexible work arrangements, the top one is remote work occasionally. Then it goes into flex time, I'm reading from the bottom up, remote work full-time, maybe part-time, or a compressed work week. So we're seeing a combination of those different strategies. This next slide is about expanding your recruiting strategies. And there's a lot on this slide, but I think it's got a lot of good information. It starts with using unbiased language in job postings and descriptions. If you really reread your job postings, look at it from the perspective of having neutral language. And there's some examples of masculine feminine and neutral language on this slide. Also increase your search radius if remote work is an option. Create new networks or partnerships. Create an authentic and compelling applicant experience. 85% of you who participated in the survey said that they already treat their employee and candidate experience as a strategic priority for their organization. But it's super important to be responsive. I spoke to a candidate this week for one of the jobs that we're recruiting for, and he thanked me for getting back to him. And he's a great candidate. And I could not believe that other positions that he had applied for, that organizations just had ignored that and had not gotten back to him. So a big part of it is responding to those who are at least applying and making sure it's a great experience with good communication. Consider using a contingent workforce. 75% of our survey participants are using contingent workforce. And then reviewing the job requirements. Think about reducing those job requirements to competencies, and then you can train on the job. So that's a little bit about attracting talent. And now we can move into our next HR challenge, which is managing higher total reward demands. That is about understanding what's important to your employees, communicating total rewards, and we also have some information on expected pay increases. 84% of the survey participants state that the meeting higher compensation benefits and total reward demands in candidates is a challenge. And if you think about creating a total reward strategy, it's a matter of thinking about what's important to your employee, what is your business strategy, and how do you pull those two things together? And then what are the gaps in that? And what are total rewards? Total rewards, we're talking about compensation, base salary, incentives, benefits, development, and career opportunities, as well as intangibles. Your culture is part of your total rewards. So as you're pulling together your total reward strategy, it does start with your organization strategy, mission, vision, values, purpose, and then really what is important to your employees. Then inventory what you have. What are those gaps? Be choiceful. Make sure you're not investing in things that your employees don't care about. Define the role of each element. Set your competitive pay positioning. Evaluate the market, but then you're never done. Continue to look at that. Continue to ask questions of your employees. And then we talk about total rewards statements. 51% of the HR survey participants state that they use total rewards statements to communicate their rewards to employees. And that's really smart because 95% of employees say that the total reward statement, they have a greater understanding of their benefits, and 78% are more likely to stay with their employer if they have a total reward statement. So total reward statements, not difficult to do, but very meaningful to your employees. Inflation. Inflation, as we said, has soared at its fastest pace in 40 years. So we did ask the question of companies and we said, did you alter your pay increase budgets in response to inflation in 2022? Half said yes and half said no, which is kind of interesting. And if we look at what the result is, we asked a question of what is your planned base pay increase in 2023? That answer, overall median, was 3.5%. The average was 3.9. We asked the same question last year. We ask it every year. Last year, the response was 3%, but actually in 2022, companies had an overall increase in pay of 4%. So they did more than they planned last year. And it kind of fits with the slide before. So 3.5% is the overall median for 2023 in our survey. Pay compression, which is you hire somebody from the outside and they require more pay to bring in that talent than the person who is a loyal, great employee that you've had a long time. So pay compression does exist. And we're finding that 51% of the organizations in our survey are granting pay increases out of cycle to current employees to handle this pay compression. And benefit costs. We did the survey this summer, and 53% of the organization said benefit costs are increasing, and that's probably before they got some of their health insurance increases just recently. But also 37% said that they're sharing those additional costs with employees. Total rewards challenge. Now let's move on to our third challenge, which is retaining key talent. We'll talk a little bit about reasons for turnover, work-life balance, career progression, and remote work. If you look at the next slide, you can see that only 10% state that their workforce is highly engaged. I think this is the lowest engagement number we've ever seen. And 41 are experiencing higher turnover than the previous year. So we go back to our employee survey and say, why do people leave? Well, compensation is number one. And we compared that to the survey results from our organizations. Compensation was the number one result on both, but organizations think people leave for compensation more often than employees do. Work-life balance was super important also to the employee, as is the culture. And you can see the difference in results between companies and workers in this survey. So employee well-being is a way to differentiate your employment brand. You can offer benefits that enhance an employee's work and home life. And 53% of employees are more likely to prioritize health and wellness over work than before the pandemic. I think that might have to do with baby boomers retiring and the new generation coming in, but there's a lot of reasons for it, and it's something to pay attention to. And 27% of the organizations in our survey are now offering paid parental leave as a total rewards differentiator. In addition, organizations are offering employee assistance programs, health risk assessments, and mental health education. Employee burnout. We hear about that, but what does that really mean? So the definition is a manifestation of chronic, unmitigated stress, feeling of hopelessness, cynicism, exhaustion, and reduced efficiency. Interestingly, my colleague, Rebecca Temple, made a presentation at the recent Wisconsin SHRM conference, and 121 HR leaders took a survey. 71% said that they were going through chronic stress to habitual burnout. That's a scary number. And in Gallup, 23% of employees are feeling burnt out. Health and wellness programs can help, but burnout employees are 2.6 times more likely to look for a different job. There's a bunch of reasons. Some are work-related, some are not. But what we need to do is understand what is stressing our employees and what can we do as employers and to help those employees to alleviate some of that stress. I do also think that the lack of community and time spent alone is a contributing factor. Now let's move on to career paths. You know, it used to be that career ladder. Now it's kind of like a career jungle gym. But what organizations are doing is reskilling, and that is teaching new skills which are not directly related to the current position to provide organizational agility, or upskilling, which is helping people to get to the next level of their job, offering new experiences. Hire for competency and develop is a key theme that we're seeing. And in our survey, 96% support upskilling and 81% reskilling. And if you think about remote work, it is here to stay. And we just need to figure it out and maximize the offerings. In our worker experience, 83% said hybrid work is at least somewhat important. And in our organization survey, 73% of respondents will require employees to be on site less than a full week. And 3 days on site was the most prevalent. So the office space is not dead. 80% of organizations have not changed their physical workspace, and less than 50% intend to increase space or downsize. But the most common reasons for physical space is for employee collaboration, or business operations require it in many cases. But a hurdle is convincing employees why to return back to the office. 80% of hybrid employees say their biggest challenge is knowing when and why to come in. They don't want to come into an empty office and take Zoom calls at work. But leaders should set really clear guidelines. What does that in-person collaboration look like? How do we facilitate productive in-office days? How do we design that workplace so it's flexible for everybody? And in the hybrid world, it can be lonely. But you can create a buddy system. You can create meaningful in-office time. And those virtual water cooler conversations on Teams or Slack, you can talk about things that might be happening outside of work that you would normally talk about in the hallway with your colleagues. So that was just a high level of our top HR challenges: attracting the right talent, meeting higher total rewards demands, and retaining the key talent, and some strategies that you may want to consider for those particular challenges. And then we have some 12 questions for you to consider, and we'll send these slides out, but this is how you can put a plan into action by really challenging yourself with these 12 questions. So with that, it is now my pleasure to reintroduce to you our panel, Jan, Tim, Tara, and Dave. And I'm going to ask each of them some questions. And then again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. And then Jill will be asking them at the very end. So with that, I'm going to ask each of you this first question, and I'll start with Tim. What has your organization done to make remote and a hybrid workplace successful?
Yeah, so we actually launched the hybrid model in August of 2021. So I think the biggest thing is we've really focused more on understanding what the individual and department goals are or expectations for the position, and using performance and hitting deliverable dates more than physical presence here in the office to try to gauge employee engagement and performance, right? So a lot less meetings, but I think the other part we've done is we've built that into our performance review system, in that we have quarterly just touch bases meetings on what those goals are. So are they relevant? Are they not relevant? Did they change? Are we on track? Are we off track? And they're just designed as 20-minute check-in meetings, but we document those and formalize that process to focus on individual performance rather than time in the office, time away from the office.
And Tim, Hayes Performance System is a large company. Do you want to give us a little bit of background in terms of the company? I should have asked that question first.
Sure. So we're a manufacturing company. We have two divisions. We manufacture brake systems for primarily power sports groups like Harley and BMW motorcycles, Polaris, Arctic Cat, Kawasaki, Yamaha. And then we have a high-end bicycle component division. So the markets that we're in, the individual passions that people bring to those markets are certainly part of our culture as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Jan, you're with American Family. You want to tell us a little bit about what you do and answer the question about what you've done in your organization to make remote and hybrid workforce successful?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. So American Family Insurance, we are a multi-line, multi-distribution organization. Many may just know us of American Family in Madison, Wisconsin, but we actually own several other insurance companies. You may have heard of the General, MSA, Main Street America, Connect, and Homesite. So we distribute our products through multi-channels, such as our inclusive agencies here, mostly in the 19 states that we operate on American Family, but we also sell to direct and independent agents. So I loved your comment, Londa, on hybrid and flexibility. And what we've been trying to do is really maintain this autonomy and flexibility. So how do we have employees have choice in how they come into work, but also set some intention? So we started off a little bit loose and working through coming back into the office. Our offices that actually have been open since the fall of 2020. And we never shut them down because we wanted to maintain them safely. And so most recently, we've been more focused on getting people into the office so we can really truly learn how hybrid works and how can we better manage meetings, Zooms, connection, asynchronous work. So starting in October, we asked for our leaders to be in the office 10 days a month. And they can choose the days, they can choose the times, they can work with each other to make that happen. We're a very highly matrixed organization, so we will always have people in some locations and not in others. Teams are across the United States. We're learning from that work in October, and we're making some shifts. And our next group, we were asking our employees now to come in November 1st, the same way. So we have them the autonomy of, you can choose the days. It might be 5 days this week, no days the following week, but really helping them to have some control over their schedule while also helping us learn what hybrid works for our organization.
That's fantastic, Jan. And Dave, you want to introduce yourself and your company and tell us a little bit about what remote and hybrid workplace means to you?
For sure. So Nord Gear is, we make drive systems, which is like an electric motor and then a gearbox. And then it goes in a variety of different industries. So like logistics, Amazon, FedEx, UPS, food and beverage industry, mining, wastewater treatment, construction. So we're mainly I'd say the majority of our employees are manufacturing. I think we've got 600 in the US, probably about 400 of those are production and the rest are office. I think, some of the things we did to make hybrid work successful, the first one was just buy a ton of IT equipment. I think we have some issues, and everybody's got their 2 monitors at work and they want their 2 monitors at home so they can be efficient. And our company did that so people don't have to haul their stuff back and forth. And I think that really helped. The second one was setting expectations about the use of a video, because it's kind of like awkward whether whoever you're talking to is going to use a video or not. So we set the expectation, like if you're going to work from home, you got to use a video, just so we still have some employee interaction and people aren't wearing their horrible sweats. They're wearing the nice sweats. We also implemented a new phone tracking software, and we mainly use that in our customer service area. So we can somewhat track what people are doing, how many calls they're taking, and have some sort of ability to manage our business. We also set expectations with our managers that you actually have to reach out to your employees on a consistent basis and check in on them. Some employees just take it and run with it and they can get lost. So we say, nope, make sure you're checking in on a consistent basis. And then the last one is just limiting the days of the week in which employees can work from home. So we try to kind of funnel it. We say, in general, you shouldn't work from home on Fridays and you shouldn't work from home on Mondays, because that's often the time that people are taking off vacation. And then we have, smaller crews. So we really push it in the Tuesday through Thursday, and it helps us manage it and kind of like baby stepping into the work from home.
That's great. Very creative and lots of different strategies. Thank you, Dave. And Tara, tell us a little bit about Tandem HR and what you're doing with remote and hybrid work.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So I'm the president of Tandem HR. We're an outsourced HR provider. So it's a full suite, one-stop shop for large group benefits, HR, payroll, and workers' compensation. So we support about 600 clients around the United States and more than 23,000 employees. I would say our companies range from 5 employees up to 2,500 employees, so very wide, but average size is about 25 to 75 employees. So we hear it and experience it and help our clients with it too. So, but what have we done internally at Tandem? I would say it's enhanced communication is by far, I would say, number one. Since going remote, we do both have a hybrid and remote. So we have people that are never in the office, and we have people that come into the office maybe a couple of days a week. So we're very flexible. And so communication is key. So we have lots of different touch points. We do a bi-weekly 30-minute all-company meeting that's mandatory to make sure everyone's hearing the same message at the same time. We have daily huddles, short daily huddles, Monday through Thursday, where there's stuffs get escalated throughout the company. We do interactive happy hours, team chats, channels, all of those things that I'm sure many of you do. But we're trying to focus on employee engagement where that proximity isn't a requirement. So having the tools and resources, like he had just talked about, making sure we have that, employees knowing what's expected of them. So we really enhanced our Power BI capabilities and dashboards. So monitoring our response and resolutions times to make sure we're getting back to our clients and doing all of the right things. Gathering feedback from our employees is critical. So doing pulse surveys, biannual engagement surveys, and we're always continually asking for feedback. And we implemented an anonymous hotline and suggestion box. So things that that you're not required to be in the office for, that you can do remote. And then we're really trying to be mindful of time. So time is not replaceable, right? So we're trying to reduce waste and get rid of meetings that are unnecessary. So giving employees an uninterrupted time to work, we implemented a rule, a no meeting Friday rule. So that's for internal meetings. So if there's client meetings, we still have those, but and it has been really, really well received. So I'd say those are probably some of the bigger things that we've done.
Well, thank you to all the panelists. These are incredible strategies showing that you're really thinking about how to make it work for everybody. And so thank you for sharing all of that. Let's move on to talking about attracting the right talent. And Jan, I'm going to start with you. How has your employee value proposition changed since the start of COVID? And how do you see it continuing to evolve in 2023?
So I think the biggest change since COVID, as not necessarily the statements around the talent value proposition, but the mindset in which we build it. What I mean by that is we've included our employees much more regularly when we're making decisions on benefits or changes, those intangible, to make sure that it isn't the HR, this is great for you, you will love it. It is, let's get your perspective on this particular part of your talent value proposition. We also, I believe we have done a really nice job of taking a diverse perspective as we think about our offerings as well. And again, that gets us closest to the people using our benefits, bringing them in, having them test it, get their feedback more regularly, I think has made a big difference for us. We also have a construct that we use of a give and get. So we want to share, like, this is what you help give to bring to the organization, sort of the expectations, but this is what you'll get from being part of this organization. So that's been a nice balance of expectations for employees and the expectations that are from them to us and what we'll give back to them. So the most has just been, and of course, flexibility. We've always had flexibility as a key part of our talent value proposition, but that is front and center now for us.
That is absolutely outstanding. I'm going to move on to Dave, and can you share with us any new talent attraction strategy that your organization has tried?
Yeah.
Only the ones that work, by the way.
Right. It seems like we have tried so many, and there are tons that don't work. You know, you got to do the billboards and the radio and the postcards and all that. And I think the ones that seem to stick out in the last couple of years are proactive searching for candidates. You know, 10 years ago, we'd post something and wait for someone to apply. And if they didn't, wait longer. And now that just doesn't work anymore. So I think for our production positions, you know, we ping people on Indeed. I think that's pretty successful. And that for production, I think it's more of a numbers game. So you ping 100 people, 10% is going to respond, 2% is maybe going to take the job. So you just really keep those numbers up. And that's helped. And then on the professional side, you know, reaching out to people on LinkedIn and other websites. And I think that's less of a numbers game and more of an art in connecting with a candidate. So it might be, you know, somebody's working at a city over and you say, hey, I noticed you're working in Baraboo. I grew up in Baraboo. Hey, I've got an opening. Try to connect with them and actually get them to respond back to you. So it's unfortunate, but I think the strategy has been roll your sleeves up and go find somebody. Another one that was successful for us in the last couple of years is, you know, again, we've got a lot of production employees, and we have a second shift that's tough to staff. And what we did was we built out a Spanish-speaking population on our second shift, and it's really been successful. So we started with just hiring trainers and just a core group of 5 Spanish speakers. And then since then, we've moved on to bilingual trainers, bilingual supervisors, and we've worked with the Latino Academy in Madison, which has been fantastic. And now we have a group of, you know, 25, 30 people who just speak Spanish, and then a whole group of bilingual employees that help connect the dots between the departments. So I think those are kind of our main focus areas or success stories.
Well, Dave, that's very incredibly creative and proactive, and congratulations on making some of those things work. How about you, Tim? What have you done to attract employees in this difficult environment?
Yeah, I think you talked about, Londa, about looking at competencies in the survey, and we've tried to break down a lot of different positions and then what I'll call micro recruiting and trying to find very niche sources for that. So We've partnered all the way down to the high school level with Inspire Sheboygan County and the Ozaukee County Youth Apprenticeship Programs, which a lot of those students can do certain functions even on the manufacturing floor, but they're in our help desk area in IT, they're in accounts payable, in accounting, right? We have worked with the Wisconsin Regional Training Program for journeyman cards for tool and die and maintenance positions. We have an extremely broad college intern program. So we have about 250 employees here in the States, and we have about 20 interns. And we don't do summer interns. That's our employees' kids' jobs program. But we target sophomores finishing up their sophomore years, and one of our hiring criteria is, do they want a job during the school year, right? So we're working with these students for 2 years, and we put them into regular positions. They're part of our staffing model. So those are some of the longer term kind of niche, I'll call them more entry level, both on the factory floor and professional tools that we use, but we've enhanced and promoted our employee referral programs, and then still trying to focus on company culture, which part of our employee value proposition is riding together. So we try to, with a lot of those groups, we'll also pull them together monthly or quarterly and find out what's working for them, what's not, what would they like to be doing, how can we expose them to other parts of the organization. So for each one of those channels, we have a champion that kind of leads those groups through part of their learning experience or succession while we build and develop them. So it's a longer term approach, which has some challenges to it, but overall it's been fairly successful.
That's great. Well, you know, what I'm hearing both of you say is being proactive, trying a lot of different things. Some are short term, some are long term, and just really being proactive. So well done. Thank you very much. Tara, how has remote work affected your talent attraction strategy at Tandem?
Yeah, and one thing I'll just piggyback off of the last comment,
Absolutely.
if that's okay. One other thing we started doing recently, I heard Boris Groysberg, he's a Harvard business professor, very talented. He spoke at an executive leadership academy we had, and he was talking about providing a realistic job preview. And so we really have tried that in the event, like we don't have a trial period or it's not feasible, giving that applicant an honest preview of really what that position entails. It does minimize the turnover. So by doing that, it reduced the turnover after the first year by 20%. And it also increases the decline offer, right? Which is a good thing because people know what they're getting into. So it increased that by about 25%. So I think just something to think about for companies is how can you provide what a real, that actual realistic job preview. So just food for thought there. Our talent attraction strategy. I think first we look at what roles can truly be remote, and we have become much more flexible. It grants us access to diverse candidates that we couldn't have ever recruited in the past, and hires people from all walks of life. It's free of any geographic confine and personal circumstances, right? Which helps with a bigger talent pool. So many of our colleagues are all across the United States. Majority are in, I would say, St. Louis, Chicago, and Madison, but we hire kind of everywhere and anywhere. Went to all video interviews like many of you did, which was different, and extending offers without really needing candidates where you can. Unless it's obviously a higher level role, we do meet in person. We invested a lot in our tech systems to help with recruiting. We probably need to do some further investments there. We are trying to make it a unique experience where we're sending, so I'm sending personalized video messages for really strong candidates that we want to hire. And maybe they don't interview with me, but I'm sending, right, someone on our executive leadership team is sending personalized video message to them, or extending the offer, or after they've gotten the offer, congratulating them on being selected. And we've had great feedback from that. So I'd say that's one thing that we've really made an effort to do. And then helping understand our culture, right? So I think automating hiring documents and getting digital signatures and that's easy part of virtual onboarding. But how do you ensure that the remote employees can understand the culture and feel like they're part of something? So, having video conferences to discuss your company core values and providing examples of how we live those. And so work-life balance is encouraged. On Fridays, we don't have internal meetings. So just giving real life examples, bringing the vision to life, providing stories to illustrate what it's like to work here, and giving some context on our company history, things that are our employee value proposition, and things we've learned. So those are a few of the things that we've been focused on.
Those are great ideas, Tara. Thank you very much for sharing. I'm going to move a little now to meeting higher total reward demand. And David, I'm going to start with you asking, how are you looking at evaluating benefits for your organization?
Yeah, I think from the cost perspective, we rely on our broker and subscribe to Mercer and compare to making sure we're competitive. I think one of the best things I like are we do an exit survey and sit down with every employee that will meet with us on the way out, and we have a section in there that talks about benefits, and I think that really helps. We've got a high deductible health plan that's dirt cheap, and I've seen the responses change over the last 5-10 years to, oh my gosh, this is an insurance, to, hey, this is really affordable. I understand that I should be putting money into my health savings account, and it's really an A plan. But if employees are extremely honest on the way out, so if we have any improvements to make, we take advantage of that. I think the last one is really, and it's pretty simple, but it's the word of mouth and SHRM. I think it's every year something new, fun comes about a benefit that you don't consider, and I try to incorporate those into our plan. So, adoption assistance. I think one of my team members went to the SHRM conference recently and came back and said, hey, we need to increase our maternity leave, from the standard 6 to 8 weeks to something more. And we need to expand our paternity leave. I think we've got 1 week we do for paternity leave. And those are fun things that you really got to do to set yourself apart. And some of them, like adoption assistance, I don't think every employee takes advantage of course. But it's nice to be able to talk to candidates about when they're coming in. They ask about these extras that your company gives. And if you're able to share some of those, it shows that you care.
That's great. Those are great examples. And Tara, I know you're looking at benefits not only for Tandem, but for all of your customers. Do you want to weigh in on how you're evaluating benefits?
Yeah, I mean, we're really, I would say, a lot of times listening to our clients and what else do they want. So, we have all of the standard benefits. We also have LifeLock, pet insurance. So there's many different things we have, but I think it's listening to our clients. I'm trying to think if there's anything on the horizon. I'd say wellness. I mean, mental health is a real thing, and so promoting those EAP services is definitely. Because that stigma is broke. I mean, you talked a little bit about that, Londa. So I think that is super important, and mental health and burnout. There's a great toolkit McLean did on organizational burnout, and so I highly recommend if any of you are struggling with that with your employees, to look up the toolkit. It can kind of walk you through it. So just listening to our clients and giving them the resources of what they need. Great,
Tara. Thank you for that. Let's move to intangibles. We talked about that as part of the total rewards package. Jan, what does American Family do to offer intangibles to employees as part of the total rewards?
So I definitely think the flexibility, but it's probably something that I don't think people see. And so I've been at American Family for 18 years, so I'm probably pretty biased about this. But I believe that the intangible that we offer is sort of this, I'm going to use this word, soul. The soul of our leadership team. And I say that because when we go to them with changes or concerns, they always bring the perspective of how does that impact the people that serve our customers. And that is something that maybe people don't necessarily see in the websites or the materials, but I do believe they feel it. when they're here. And that's just something that I think is just really special about our organization, which is why I've been here for as long as I have and why we have such great tenure. And I think that is something that breathes life into the flexibility, the autonomy, how we're thinking about hybrid, how we're asking people to bring their thoughts to learn how to be better going forward.
That's great examples. And Tim, what about you? What intangibles are you offering your employees?
Yeah, I agree with everything Jan just said, that having senior management accessible and available on a daily basis goes a long way when you're trying to talk about change within the organization. We've focused more on trying to bring our core values to life. So yes, they're on a plaque in the conference room wall, but we built them into our performance reviews. We built a Hayes High Five recognition program because there's 5 core values, which we give financial rewards to. We've adopted the last few years 3 different charities that the company sponsors. We're moving to a paid time off program for people if they want to go volunteer for their own charity of choice. And we're also 2 other big ones. We're focusing on our internal environment. So being a manufacturer, we have a very clean environment, but just office equipment, standing desks, simple things that people want in their work environment. So that's a relatively new initiative for next year. The women's restroom is always a big issue for manufacturing companies. And then from a financial standpoint, this year, we're looking at adding lifestyle spending accounts. So a little bit of a way to control your long-term fixed cost, but giving employees all the flexibility they want. So we built ours really totally wide open on whatever they want to spend those dollars on. So that, along with merit increases, right, is the financial component that we're looking at driving in 2023.
And Tim, do you want to go a little bit further on that? What are the compensation offerings that you're seeing employees ask about most frequently?
Well, I mean, same thing with your survey, right? Compensation is important. So I know we were up over 4.5% last year. So we hit a streak about a year ago where we had a number of people resign, and we moved quickly to take a look across the organization. How did the market shift? What wage adjustments do we need to make? Who are high potential or high performers? Who do we want to keep? And we started addressing those issues then. That's continued this year and is going to continue into next year. But it's also about getting people to buy into the Hayes culture, right? We're a little bit lucky in the markets that we're in. We have a lot of passionate people that enjoy the outdoors. They want to know what we're doing from an environmental standpoint. So more and more, if we're confident that we're in range in the market, I think it's the intangibles that certainly our younger employees are looking for. And how do we make those visible that they can get engaged in things with that? So we have a program called Ride Along or Ride Together. We do bicycle rides, and we teach people how to ride motorcycles or ATVs or snowmobiles. And it's finding ways for people to connect and actually create some friendships even within the organization. So
compensation has to be
focus is on the culture.
And compensation has to be competitive, but culture's what the secret sauce is to get people over the edge.
Well, it's what we're driving. I'm not
That's
sure.
Great. Awesome.
Driving.
Well, I can see we have a lot of questions from the audience, so I'm going to ask each of you one final question, and then we'll move to our audience question. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give an HR leader as they look to 2023? And Tara, would you like to start?
Sure. Sorry, I had to unmute. Oh boy, one piece. So I think there's a triple squeeze of pressures, right? Alonda was already talking about. You have rising inflation, scarce talent, and global supply constraints. So focusing on your people and doing whatever you can to retain them, especially your A players. So, we say I would say it's not true that people are a source of competitive advantage. It's great or good people are a source of competitive advantage. So I think the key to maintaining a high functioning organization company through growth and change is to constantly evaluate whether you have the right people in the right roles at the right time. So making sure those star players don't leave you, and ensuring you have the right managers and leaders in place that are authentic, empathetic, and adaptive during these crazy times.
Awesome. And Dave, what's your one piece of advice?
Mine's pretty simple, but it's stay positive and tell employees that it's going to be okay. So in your presentation earlier, you showed like 70% of HR professionals are feeling burned out, and I know the same's for managers in general. Companies go through things like Tim stated. There's a mass exodus, a year ago, and in those times, I think as a leader, you got to stay positive and you got to tell people it's going to be okay, even if it's not going to be okay. and because that positivity is infectious. But I mean, we've had a tough couple of years, and if you don't have somebody saying, hey, it's going to be all right, this happens once in a while, we're going to get through it, keep your chin up, you're in trouble. So stay positive.
Great message. Great message. And Tim, what's your one piece of advice?
Yeah, I think it's being honest and direct with people and having open communication. I think it's always important, right? But I think moving into 2023 with all of the headwinds that are in the economy, it's openly sharing information that you can and making sure that you've got high touch, high engagement with your employees so that you know and understand what their concerns are and they feel that they're being listened to. Absolutely.
Communication is key. When we've done employee surveys in the past, that is show you care, communicate with me, and pay me well. Those were the three things. So thank you for that. And Jan, what is your one piece of advice?
I have lots of them. There's so great advice from everybody on the panel. I took something from every one of you as well. For me, it's just continue to learn. And that seems so simple, but I think HR is in a stage of completely revamping how we do everything and from a management systems to how leaders build capabilities. And so I think it's helpful for us to take that employee view, but also that we're continuously learning with a growth mindset. And the other piece too, is I think David said it, is this building resiliency. I don't think we can manage change the way that we used to in the past. I think it's so fast and so complex that the building resiliency is the way to manage that pressure and change for us in the people world.
That is such great advice. Thank you, Jan. And Jill, we've got a lot of great questions. Do you want to get started and ask some of the questions of the panelists?
Absolutely. So I don't know if we'll be able to get them all, but I'll follow up on them if we did not answer yours. But the first one is just in general to the panelists. Do you believe that 100% remote work has allowed you to recruit and retain talent more so than the hybrid option?
I could go. We don't do it, and if we did, it would open up the doors to retain more talent.
Tara?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we're getting talent that we wouldn't be getting elsewhere ever had we not done it. The flip side of that is a lot of other companies can poach your good talent if they're doing it too. So I think just remembering that when I go back to my last comment on speaking to keeping your good talent.
Yeah, so I actually think it's still open for debate on the retention. So I do think it has allowed us to recruit, but I don't know if that is fully remote is how we've cracked the nut on creating the connection and community to the employee. So I think it's so new that we need to learn a little bit more about the impact of fully remote before I think we go all in, candidly.
Yeah, I think there's certain positions, regardless of the organization type, that can be remote and can be remote 100%. I think there's a downside to that too, in that there's a lot of people who you'll never truly meet or get to know or build relationships with. And so when tough times hit, there's a future liability that exists that you're 100% remote as well too. So there's positives and I think negatives to that. But yes, I think there are positions you can do that with.
To Jan's point, sorry, Jill, to Jan's point, I think it's about connectedness, right? So employee culture connectedness, and what does that mean? Like that employees identify with the culture, they care about the culture, and they belong within the culture. And how do you create that type of an environment with peer recognition, manager support during difficult experiences, celebrating successful outcomes? Yeah. So I think it's all about that connectedness in order for it to work. And we've gotten boomerang employees back who've left because we opened up the door to do that. So thank you.
You said it 100%, Terry. I agree. And I think that's a great opportunity for us to work differently with those people that aren't in office all the time.
Excellent. The next question, David and Tim, would be more directed at the two of you in regards to like your production or your employees that are on the floor. Have you done anything around 410s or 312s to kind of help recruit talent? For people who have to physically be at work all the time, and has that helped you?
We just have a first and second shift. Our second shift, we did switch to 410s, or we currently do it, and it really helps. So we do Monday through Thursday. I think it's like a 2:30 to 1 in the morning, and I mean, people love having those 3 days off, and we've really pushed to pull back on mandatory overtime for our production teams, and that's kind of the name of the game in manufacturing is mandatory overtime. And we found that people are just quitting, there's like, I'm not going to work this weekend, I quit. So we got smart and we stopped mandatorying them in the first place and switched it to voluntary, and that's helped. But
Yeah, we can't go. We asked our employees if they wanted to do 410s, and they told us no. But what we did is we had very traditional start and end times. We've given a lot more flexibility for when people want to. They're not setting their own hours, but about 20% of our workforce doesn't have our traditional start and end times. And then same thing, weekend overtime is common in manufacturing, so we put in some programs about going volunteers first. We called it free passes, that even if I get mandatory over this weekend, as soon as it's posted, hey, I've got something going on, so I'm cashing in my chip here. I'm telling you I'm not going to be here. So we've tried to build some programs like that just drive giving people more control over that schedule and what works for them. So it's been helpful.
Excellent. I think we just have time maybe for one more question, and this one anyone could answer, regarding referral bonuses for new hires. Is this something that your companies are doing? Has it been successful? And if you're willing to share, how much do you offer? And if you aren't willing, that's okay too.
Yeah,
we've been employed. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
So we always had one, but it was pretty dormant. We've been promoting it actively for both salaried and hourly positions, and we do the same amount for both, and it's $2,000.
How long does the employee need to stay before you pay the bonus?
6 months.
Okay.
And it's all or nothing.
We've had a standard one over the year that's always in place. That's 500, but we've played with that and tried to do special campaigns that get up to like 1,500 and 2,000. And then we pay it out in separate amounts. So like 30 days, 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah, we do it as well. It's $1,000. It's paid after 90 days of employment.
Yeah, we're similar to David. We've experimented with a lot of different options. We do get a lot of benefit when we recruit our inclusive agency with that referral bonus, and we do pay up to $5,000, I believe, for that particular group.
That's great. Good. Well, Jill, I know that we will be sending out the slides. We'll be sending out the recording.
Yes.
We will also be sending out the answers to the questions that we weren't able to get to. And I just want to thank the panelists. Oh my word, I have learned so much from each of you, and it really shows that we are living in unprecedented times. But if you're positive, you're proactive, you're creative, you try different things, you're really connected to your employees and listening and learning all the time, and you're genuine about it and you're communicating well, good things are going to happen. So just want to thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts and ideas with all of us today. And thank you all for participating in our webinar. Thank you again. Have a great day.
I think, thank you.
Thank you.